Hi, thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to focus on abstract painting. I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm going to go over my process from beginning to end, explaining to you my thoughts, my techniques, and my beliefs on how I create abstract art. I hope you enjoy this. I'm starting out with neutral colors. I'm right in the center of the value scale. I can apply light colors to it and get a good contrast. I can also apply dark colors and get a good contrast. So I'm going to start out right in the center and then push and pull with lights and darks to start creating depth, perspective, and so on. I'm going to use the composition grid, quarters and thirds, like I explained in my first DVD, The Fundamentals of Painting. This is a grid that I use for everything. It just works well. It makes for nice pictures. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it. This one happens for me to be the best way of doing it. So I'm going to start applying paint. The one thing I do want to do is also explain to you, I try to stay away from a couple of things. The biggest ones, even numbers and patterns. We're going to mix up a little white and a little raw umber. I'm going to start applying here. Doesn't really matter where, just as long as we keep a couple of things in our mind. I like you to be able to go back and forth and climb over things and move under things. Do want to stay right out of the center directly. That's a no-no, based on our composition grid, of course. Okay, now we're going to move in with a little bit of dark. Okay, now as you can see, I've already divided the canvas up. Let's do this. Let's put, let's go like so. Okay. Now we basically really have three sections. Here, here, and here. Small, large, medium-sized. We don't want to create a pattern where all three shapes would be. We don't want two shapes. We want 3, 5, 7. We don't want to create a pattern of equal shapes. Larger, smaller, that's what creates your movement. When you start creating patterns, patterns conflict with the ability to perceive depth. So it's hard to create depth with something. Let's say it was a conventional painting and you had trees. Each one of them was exactly the same size. Okay, there wouldn't be any movement. It would be just a straight row. If I make some of them smaller, they start to look like they're going back. The bigger ones are going to come forward. All these things apply to your abstract art also. So I'm going to start off with applying a little bit of dark, and we'll just see where this goes. Do I have a set plan for this? Not really. The plan kind of gets created in the process. As you apply the paint, me personally, I start to see things and just respond to them, so to speak. Another nice thing is when you're applying paint, here's a nice sharp edge. You want to have a combination. Sharp edges, blended edges. Let's take this right here. Let's blend this out nice. Use a lot of medium to help with the blending. And as you can see, it starts out here and then it gets light as it goes. example, when you're working on some of the shapes, let's say here we have, let's put in some hard edges. Okay, we have hard edges in there, but yet we can go in here and blend a portion of it. It's a really nice way to show, to create depth also, really. You shade it, it appears to go back. Now here I'm going to put some hard edges also, but here's my focal point. I'm off center, which is great. I don't want to be in the center, but here's my focal point. I want to make the intensity here more than it would be here. Here we'll do the same hard edges, but yet the value of the color is less. It's not quite as stark. Like I say, there's no game plan here. It's just apply the paint and have some fun with it and see where it goes. I'm starting to cut this into another section. Now we have 4 sections, which we're not going to stay at, but as you can see, small, medium, large, and so on and so forth, the shapes have to be different in size. They have to consume a different percentage of the volume of the canvas. The style of abstract is great. A lot of guesswork in it, a lot of experimentation. You run with it, and it's so much fun. You apply different colors, and as long as you maintain with the certain rules that apply to it, you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna come up with a very attractive painting. I'm going to take some of these areas and blend them. There's a lot of medium for that. If you want to blend, medium works great. Just throw a little color in there. Take a wet brush, move it around. Okay, now I already have a basic idea of where I'm going here. Because I have 4 shapes, I'm going to break this down just one more time, I believe. And that's going to be right here. I'm going to apply a little bit more raw umber before I get into coloring. A lot of medium with this stuff. And the other thing I'm going to throw in the mix now is I want to kick it down a little bit. I've got white on the palette. Now I'm going to put a Payne's Gray. You can buy this. I like to make my own. I like to lean towards the blue a little bit more. It's a simple combination of Mars Black and Ultramarine Blue. I like a little more blue in it. Since this is the focal point, I'm going to increase contrast here a little bit more than in other areas. A little blending. I have a tendency to do a lot of underpainting. I like to put in a base, then go over it with other colors, and then I add washes. And the other thing I'm going to do is I want to start getting a little bit of color on this white. Just a very light base that I'm putting in of the Payne's Gray, just to get away from the white. Put this Payne's Gray right over the raw umber. I mean, acrylic moves fast. This raw umber, even these washes are just about dry already. But that's okay. We were previously blended out, and now I just go over it with this Payne's Gray, and it goes on top of that raw umber and creates a whole different shade. I like these loose, choppy brush strokes. Now, the one thing you can do, this wants to dry up. It's starting to dry up here. Just going to go in and wet it down again. There's also a couple of techniques you can use. While it's wet, I spray a little bit of water on it. Creates a little bit of an effect. Just draws it down. Let the background paint dry for a second where the water is. It's still wet. Then I can take that right off again with a spray bottle once the background is dry. Okay, well, I'm letting some of that water do what it needs to do and dry up. Take a little titanium white on a flat brush. Don't be afraid to drag it and leave nice, loose, rough edges on it. Really can make for a nice look. Give it a nice fragmented look with this, applying a little bit of an impressionistic type of approach to it. Picks up a little bit of the paint underneath. You do want to let some of your underpainting dry. If you apply too much color too fast and it's all wet, then you're going to end up with mud. A little bit of shading I put in here. I take the titanium. I can actually create stuff in that area just by going in with the titanium and bringing the background back up. It's a little bit more subtle here than it is here because this is my focal point. These little background things creates depth. That looks like I've got the same thing going on just farther back because it's more subtle. Don't really have a plan, just kind of go with the flow and see where you go. I take that strong titanium, I'm going to tone it down a little bit. Because this in here, I appreciate the dark, but this vertical column here, I'm going to change. I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber up into that direction, just to break away from that straight vertical column. I like the random variation. I don't want too many lefts and rights, so to speak. Okay. Okay, now I threw a little bit of titanium white in here. It caves in that vertical column. Now, even though I've put Payne's Gray up here to divert this vertical column so it's not so pronounced, it still is because I have the raw umber in there. Now, once I bring that raw umber into this area, now that column is going to disappear. It'll be give us a little bit more of a random appearance. Little. And this here is also going to help us. don't have any set plan. I just kind of go with it and where it feels right. While that titanium's wet, it blends into that Payne's gray a little bit. Create some nice deep looking shapes. I noticed down here, it's got to get a little busier, and I'm going to do that by applying titanium, bringing some of that background back up. Blends, and the same thing here. Okay, so far we've used 3 colors: raw sienna, burnt umber, titanium white, of course a Payne's gray, and medium. That's all that's on here. There's no color in this to speak of. So anyway, we have a nice solid base in here. We're going to let this dry up. Once this is dry, then I'm going to go ahead and put washes on it, and you'll see how this works. You're going to love it. Okay, this is dried up well. Now we're going to put some washes on it, apply some color, and continue the process. You have to start out here, a lot of medium, especially at this point. Let my brushes down nicely. Now, I've added yellow ochre and cerulean blue to what we had on the plate. Raw sienna, burnt sienna, titanium white. So right now, I want to start applying some yellow ochre because this brings the level of yellows up, and then the cerulean blue to introduce some blue to it. And of course, when we're doing this in washes, when these two start overlapping each other, we're ending up with some greens. So I have to focus a little bit on where I want my light. My light area is right here, right here. This is going to be more objective, so there's going to be a little reflection on there, so to speak. Now we're going to apply some yellow ochre right in this light area. Now this is just a wash. Lots of medium, just a touch of color, and everything that's underneath it shows right through. A very opaque color. You got to be cautious with it because it can overwhelm very quickly. I know I'm going to come up here with a little bit of cerulean blue in these areas. Okay, so I'm going to take this yellow ochre wash, I'm going to push it up into these areas, get thinner and thinner and thinner, and then when the cerulean blues come in, we're going to overlap that yellow ochre and it's going to give us a nice subtle green. Now before I put the cerulean blue in, I need this to dry up, which is a very thin layer. It'll dry very quickly. But while I'm doing that, create a little bit of depth. I'm going to take some titanium white and go into these areas again. It's almost like shading an object. Light, dark. Now here we're going to have a white section. I'm going to put the titanium white right over that so that it looks like it's continuing. Then I'll just blend it up into that yellow ochre a little bit here. That way it doesn't look like a layer of yellow ochre on top. Now when I put the titanium in, it's actually moved that layer back. So we're going to let that dry up nicely, and then we're going to start putting a little cerulean blue in. Okay, our yellow ochre is dry now. Now we're going to pick up a little bit medium. And we're going to go right into the cerulean blue, which is also a very opaque color, so again, you have to be a little cautious with it. Now you have to apply this nice and slowly, thin layers. You're better off putting on more layers than blasting it all at once with color, and then you start covering up what's underneath. As you can see here, the cerulean blue goes over the yellow ochre and it starts giving us some nice greens here. And yet the white that I put in after I put the yellow ochre on, when I put the cerulean blue over it, they turn blue. So just with the white and the two colors, I end up with a lot of variation. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit over here. I don't want too much because I don't want to teeter-totter. Got to keep in mind, even these washes, these colors, you have to distribute them on the canvas the same as everything else. You don't want a piece like this, a piece like this. It has to be a variation, a small amount, a large amount, and everything in between, and they need to be placed randomly instead of in any kind of a pattern or sequence. Now here I have a larger section of the cerulean blue, a small section here, and I'm actually going to drop right in here where we get a little bit of balance, but we're not going to use this portion here. We're not going to keep loading into this heavy area. So we have to go off on the side a little bit. The whole thing's about balance. What you put where. If a painting is too heavy on one side, then it feels uncomfortable. Okay, so as this sits as a focal point, we don't want to keep piling everything onto the focal point. So now the blue from here, it's almost like again, balance. Now, these washes have to dry, but while they're doing that, I also like to put a good, strong, opaque version of the same cerulean blue, and I want to drop a little bit of stuff in here. and then blend some of it out just like we did with the hard edges there when we talked about that. I have to spend a lot of time stepping back and looking at it. It's hard, the larger the canvases get, it's hard to look at the whole thing when you're so close to it. And to balance the cerulean blue out a little bit, I need to take a section here. Increase the value of that cerulean blue. Now we go over this titanium white with the cerulean blue, and that just gives us a real nice lighter version of the blue. Okay, now you can see we put a yellow ochre wash on there, transparent. What was underneath it is showing through. When that dried, now I went over it with cerulean blue wash. Now the cerulean blue goes over the yellow ochre in areas. The two colors combined gives us a nice shade of green. So we've added 3 colors by applying 2 realistically. So we're going to let that set for a moment. We'll see what we do next. Okay, this is set up real nice. Now we're going to go ahead and put some titanium white in there. I want to apply some here because I don't want that pillar coming back. So that'll get rid of some of that vertical. Okay, that white in there just eliminated that vertical appearance that this seems to want to take all the time. I don't want to get into the center too much, but I want to give this some depth as a light source. So in order to do that, I'm going to need some titanium white in there, blending out a little bit. It's going to appear as a fade. Right now it's just white. The minute I put just a pinch of yellow on that, it'll set it way back. And I'm just going to mess around with some of the design. I don't want that pattern where I've just they're all they all follow a guideline there. I don't want that. This one here needs to go up. I'm excited. It's really starting to take some shape, some movement. It's back and forth, and the activity level is increasing on it. I wish I could give you some scientific method I use that to put this here, to put that there. I don't have one. I just look, I feel like that's where that needs to go, and I'm not always correct. A lot of times I'll put something on, say, yeah, that's might have been not what I wanted, and then I'll remove it or cover it. So the biggest thing is you got to keep moving on it all the time. Okay, now that I put some whites in there, we've added color, we're putting white in to bring the highlights out again. Now we're going to do just the opposite. More medium. Wet the brushes. This time we're going to go in the other direction. I'm going to take some Payne's Gray, not black, but Payne's Gray. And I'm going to start dropping some dark areas in here too right away. The same thing works in reverse as far as the wash goes. A little bit of the dark in there, mix it with medium, and we've got a wash of Payne's Gray. We can tone areas down. I like to tone all my corners down. I have a tendency to vignette a painting. Don't know why, it's just something I learned and using it forever, really. Being that the Payne's Gray's got a blue base, I can pick a white area, like this right here, for instance. Almost gives me a blue, like a really vague bluish color. But more activity here as far as creating some balance. Now, standing back and looking at the canvas, I've noticed that here I have to put some more contrast. It's a little heavy here. The balance just doesn't feel right to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add down here so I don't have that curvature here. I can connect this somehow. Now if I put some hard edge here, and then do a little blending on this side, I'm going to push that back a little bit, and it's going to help us give a little dimension to what's going on over in this portion of the canvas. Sometimes if you drag a dry brush, it'll give you a nice coarse, it'll pick up the texture of the canvas, give you a nice coarse look, which is, instead of blending everything and making everything smooth all the time, it's nice to rough it up a little bit too here sometimes, like here. Okay, I need to bring this focal point down a little bit, but I want to stay away from that vertical column too, so instead of going right underneath it, I'm going to lean over to the left a little bit. It's going to help us out with balance also. Now I'm going to grab some titanium white very quickly, and I'm going to just drop a little bit of it into this column to break it up. It's getting a little bit too solid. Good, that breaks that up nicely. I have to create a little bit more design work up here just to push that back, give it the illusion of moving back. In creating depth, size of an object is very, very important. The smaller it is, the farther it goes back. So in order for me to give that the illusion of going back, I drop a few small areas in also. And you put a couple big ones in so to compare it. Yeah, I like this a lot. That's really giving it some movement. But I see a straight line here, which I don't like. So I'm going to bring this down a little. break some of the hard edges. We'll make it appear to go back. And I'm just going to apply a little bit up here. All right. Okay, I like how this is coming out so far. We've applied some color to it. We put some washes on there. We went in with lights, darks, moved them back and forth. We're creating some nice movement. I'm very pleased with it. I need to let this dry at this point, but one thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to apply some more of these runners. I think they're an important part of this. What I do is I take a little squeeze bottle and I put some paint in medium. Hit it with water first, and then just let the paint follow the trail. If you don't like the trail, remove it. Let's see here. Now I'll take a white area like this. Spray bottle is necessary. You're going to have it if you're going to get this kind of an effect out of this. Okay, we're going to have to add a little bit up here. Yeah, that creates a really nice random pattern. Okay, I'm not going to put anything here in the center. I don't like anything in the center. And I don't want this to come down here and cover up what we're doing here. This particular runner here is too long. It's slicing the canvas in half. Take the water bottle and eliminate. Create an opening there. So, okay, there's some white. Now we're going to do a couple of dark ones. Beautiful. Okay, so we put those vertical lines in there now, nice and random patterns. It's got good balance to it. Now I'm going to let this dry up, and we're going to keep going with some color. Okay, now that this is set up, I'm going to start applying more color washes to it. I've went ahead and put on our palette some burnt sienna, and we've also added what's called permanent rose. This here is an earth tone that has a rust reddish color to it. This is an absolute amazing color. The permanent rose, it's a little bit of an off shade, but I like it because it makes a great wash. It makes for great transparency, and when you lay it over blue, you get a lot of purples, a lot of nice things. So again, we're going to load up on medium just like we always do. We'll start with a permanent rose. This goes on top of that cerulean blue. It's going to make some beautiful, beautiful purples, lavenders, violets, whatever you want to call them. Nice array of colors. And I think we're going to start bringing some of that in this section here. Blend it out a little bit with some medium. When I put this permanent rose on top of the yellow ochre, let's go down here, on top of the yellow ochre, starts giving us a little bit of an orange. Basically, we're mixing a version of red and a version of yellow. Here's a color that adds tremendous depth to what we're doing. Even in the very opaque areas where the value is high, I can go ahead and put this on top of the blue, and they still have a tendency to mix and give you the variation you need. But color, like everything else, has to be balanced. You don't want it too heavy in one area. The only thing that motivated me to put that right there is balance. I don't want to get too spotty, boom, 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 boom. I want to keep some of the areas just get a nice even flow of that color without creating pattern. Need to put a little bit more up here. Very transparent color, and when it dries it does fade. So at times you have to put a little bit more on there to get the value that you want. I'm going to stop here for a moment. I'm going to put a wash of raw sienna over here, let that set up, and then I'm going to put a permanent rose wash on it. It'll give us a good variation, and it's going to be a nice mediator between the rose that we have here and the burnt sienna that we're going to use. This color will stand right in the middle of those two. More medium, of course. I should buy a 55-gallon drum of this material. Okay. I'm going to need a lot of it because we're going to make a nice wash out of this. Okay, so right in this area, I have to put this raw sienna. Okay, well, I'm going to tone down some of these titanium whites here right away because I like the yellowish characteristics of this color. We can always go back in with the white and add to it again. I really need this color here. We're going to up the value a little bit here, make it a little darker, a little more opaque. But it's really going to pan out well when we put that permanent rose on it. I'm going to throw a couple of spots in up here too. See, it's the same thing, back and forth, dark, light. I like this yellow glow we have here that really looks like a hole that has light shining through it. Gives it a very, very nice look. All right, I'll go over the rose up here a little bit. Color variations you get by overlapping these washes is staggering. It's hard to believe you can get such a variety of color. Tone down this permanent rose here. Okay, in this area here and here, I don't want to get too much yellow in there. I want to keep it the nice crisp white cerulean blue without toning it down with the yellows. When you have variations of warm and cold and so on, it helps you really create a lot of movement in the painting. As you can see, this is going back and forth. We're just using value, the lights and darks, the shading, the size, and just with those items, you can move this around, push it and pull it any which way you want. I'm going to give that a moment to set up, then I'm going to go back in with that permanent rose, and you'll see the color is just beautiful. Put the raw sienna in here, dried up pretty good. I'm going to go back to the permanent rose. And these two colors together are absolutely beautiful. I'm going to stay away from there because I don't want it to look like there's a sheet of rose over the whole thing. I just want it to... Yeah, I'm not going to put any rose in here at all. I'm going to leave that area empty. I don't want it to look like this, the whole thing's been covered in it. I just want it in, strategic places. Okay, now I'm going to drop in a few hard, increase the value on that rose quite a bit, and drop in some really opaque, solid versions of the same color. Need a little spot right there. A lot of times the placement of color, the size of it and all that has to do with basically with balance more than anything. I'm looking at this color, the permanent rose. I'm going to say, it's too heavy in this area, there's not enough here. See, there's kind of a belt now here, and I just need something a little bit stronger up here. Turn the cerulean blue into a nice violet color. Putting some rose on it, so that closes that in a little bit, but yet it allows that cerulean blue, that light color, to drop right through the bottom of the canvas, which is great. Okay, so that's it with the rose for right now. The next color is going to be burnt sienna. Before I do that, I'm going to go back in with the titanium white again and the Payne's gray again, bring the contrast back. One thing about this style of painting, there's no distinct objects or subject matter, so it's very important that the contrast is where it needs to be. That's the only thing that gives you any kind of shape or movement and gets you away from the flat surface. So what I'm going to do, same thing. We're going to take some medium, we're going to take some titanium white. Now we're going to have to bring some of them back. Now, being that this is an area that I want focused with lighting, this side of the pillar, so to speak, I want to drop in some lights here. Using that titanium white. I want some hard edges, but not all hard edges. If I take a simple shape, let's take this area right here. Okay, I take a simple shape, put a little dab of white and just blend to one side. Suddenly it gives that shape form. It looks like a highlight. Just here, this scattered look. And now the way we have this belted at those different shapes there, we're going to have to do a little bit over here too, just so we're not cutting this right here. We got to be careful. There's a lot going on here. There's a hard edge, which is fine, but if it gets too extreme, pretty soon you'll have two. It's like working on two separate canvases. So now I'm sure you saw that. I dropped just those little spots right there, and suddenly this whole thing opens up to us. Okay. Okay, we're going to do a little bit more of this stuff right down here. I don't want it to stand out too much, so it's not going to be as hard edge and aggressive as it is up here. Okay, I'm going to have to put some white in here, even though this is the dark area of the pillar. I need to bring some color in here. I need to lighten it up, but not as much as here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put white on there, let it dry. Once it's dry, I'll put color back on it, and it'll just, it'll kick it up a little bit without. A little bit of raw umber, just a pinch of raw sienna in there. Give it a little bit of life because it's kind of a dead color. Put a little titanium white in there. I'm going to bring that color value up, and I want to do a little bit more of this, but I don't want to create a pattern and scatter it all over the place. So I'm going to put some in here, but not as heavy as that. Tone the color down a little bit. Do a little bit down here. Now this color here is really close to what we started out with when we first applied color to the canvas. we're going back to that middle point. These are good references for that middle point. Now these are lighter, those are darker. Also going to use this to break off that edge. We don't have that hard edge going down there. That's good. Just put a little dab of weight in there. Beautiful. Okay, and I'm going to throw a little Payne's Gray into that, bring it back down. A little bit over here. Just tone some of these areas down just a pinch. Phew, boy, this is going to be a toughie. Okay, there we go. I have to get rid of that. I don't like a lot of even lines and so on. I think the secret to the success of this style painting is the random. You know, you can look around, every place you look, you see something different. I think that's a real important part of this. Okay, again, we're going to create a vignette a little bit. Just darken up your edges and your corners. I'm sure if you ever do it to one of your paintings, you'll see what I mean. It basically keeps a person looking at the painting in the painting, so they don't off the canvas and end up somewhere else. This is dark enough without doing a black thing, and pulls this up a little. If we can draw this down carefully. Ugh, too hard. Gonna cheddar the edges nice and I'll have this design kind of fade down into here so those lights and darks intertwine. Okay, I need to darken this corner up more. I need to cradle this a little bit. Didn't really want to make that dark, but the way it is. I'm going to smear a little medium around the area. So when I blend that dark, it goes easy. I'm going to go in and lay some burnt sienna on top of it afterwards, but for right now it has to be darkened up. A little bit here. Alrighty. There. I'm going to put a little dark in here too. Okay, I really like how this is working out so far. We've got a good variety of colors, we got nice balance, good variation. I don't see any structural patterns. Again, it's more of a balance thing than anything. And don't worry, because if you don't like it, you can just spray it and it's gone. I do want to focus on this area a little bit. This has such a nice concentration here. I really like it. It's a good focal point. I'm not going to put any more here for right now. I like this. We concentrate here. It's just a nice subtle version of it. Again, this comes forward, that's going back. I almost want one here though. I have to do this. I don't know why, but I just do. Do the same thing with the Payne's Gray. Just finding the spot. Here I want to put a light one. I don't know how this is going to work. Just going to leave a nice shadow of it in there. Now I just need to, one more time, and I don't like the hard edge that I have right there, so I'm just going to take the brush, it up a little bit. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, now I gotta let this sit and dry. Once this is dry, we're gonna go back in, apply some more washes again. Okay, this looks like it's dried up really nice. All right, now back to the color and washes. More medium. I'm bringing in a dark like a navy blue. Cerulean blue is a good opaque color, but you'll never get it down to the point that you'll get something like this here. This navy blue makes a beautiful wash too. It becomes very transparent in a hurry. I really like where we are here. The other thing, the thing's kind of got a little bit pink on me. So I'm going to change some of that by going in with some of the dark blues. Start up here in this corner just to get the feel of the color. Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, good, good. This is going to take some of that pink and turn it around a little bit for us. So we go in here. You just take a little bit of that edge off. I like the way that permanent rose, when it sits on top of the Payne's Gray, the very dark background, that permanent rose gets a real nice tint to it. Now we got a lot of violet going on here, which is really, really attractive. I just got to tone it a little bit. Color makes a wonderful wash. Just apply it, blend it in nicely, and as it goes on top of the other colors, just get more and more and more. A little bit of blue I put in here and around here and so on. That's already taken that permanent rose and drawn it way down. I like the color, but I don't want it to be overbearing, which I just got to put a little bit of this blue on there. Okay, that's nice. I retained some of that rose color, but I toned it down because of applying the blue wash over some of it. Perfect, exactly what I want. Don't be afraid. I just put that blue in here, which I'm going to put back in again, but just to show you. You put something on you're not comfortable with, if you keep a spray bottle of water handy and a paper towel, you just hit it, wipe it off, you're right back to square one. It's probably got to be the richest blue I've ever seen. Yeah, a little bit of light shining through there, that looks great. I really like how this is coming out. I see these nice open, airy feeling spots here, concentrated subject matter there. There's a lot to look at, a lot to look at. And it's fun because every time you put a brush to it, you find something else. Okay, a little medium titanium white again. Gotta bring back some of this. Just put a little dab of white in. Take a brush, just pull it down. It automatically breaks, like blends that side of it. Looks like we need a little bit more weight in here. Focal point. It wants to head towards the center. I don't know if it's me but I've got to keep it away from there. Very carefully, I'm going to pick up some of this burnt sienna. It's a very, very potent color. I got to tell you, one of my favorites. A lot of old paintings that you'll look at, old masters, they used a lot of burnt sienna. They would paint a picture like a portrait, put a burnt sienna wash over the whole thing, and then go back and put highlights in. You get such a tremendous look with it. But you have to be cautious because it's potent. Here, we'll just tip a little bit in there, darken up the edge, makes it warm and gives it depth at the same time. I want to put a little bit in here, but I'm a little kind of gun shy. Then of course when I get an area like this where that rose is sticking up and I want to eliminate some of that pink, that'll take care of that. I don't want to get rid of that. That's such a nice arrangement of color there. A little bit up here. Yeah, I'm going to try a little bit up here. Yeah, this color never disappoints it. And I'm going to draw a little bit down here to darken this section up. I like to do a lot of blending. I don't like flat surfaces. Okay, so we added that nice navy blue. We put a little burnt sienna in it. Now we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to put in some deep burgundy. Okay, nice and dry. Next color we're going to introduce here is going to be like a burgundy color. It's called alizarin crimson. Same thing as the navy. It just is very transparent, makes a nice wash. And this is something I want to put in here. Break away some of the flatness of these particular colors. If you happen to take it and go over some of that blue, it comes out real nice. Tone that a little bit. I don't like it though. Okay. Tone that a little. Okay, I'm dropping some of it down in here just to offset some of these shapes, but I'm truly not really finding a place for it because I don't want to get back into that rose color, which is what this is kind of doing. So just kicked up a little bit where I gave us just a pinch of purple, and I think that's where we're going to leave that one. Okay, the next color I use is going to be a yellow. It's like a combination of burnt sienna and a very, very bright cadmium yellow. It makes this gold. Very, very potent, but what we can do with it, we can kill a lot of these lights. I don't particularly like a lot of white on a painting, white paint. I think white is more for tinting other colors, but so I use this color. It keeps it, gives it the strength that the white has, but just tones it down just enough to make it look correct. And of course this, where you go over the rose, it creates like an orange. So see, that's nice. I put that yellow over the raw white, titanium white. Just a very, very tinted wash. And it just took that white and got rid of that unfinished stark look that it has by itself. So that even though this is the brightest point of the canvas, okay, these whites are still just toned down a little bit. Just going to give us one more tweak to get us to that three-dimensional look we're always trying to accomplish. Okay, we're just about ready. Threw in a few more of the white highlights. Got our focal point where we want it to be. Got plenty of color, did the washes. Got a nice variety of color. One more thing I like to do is I like to take a small brush, put a little bit of cadmium red on there. I like to pick a particular spot. And in this painting it's going to be right here. Matter of fact, I like that enough, I'm going to do it a couple of times. So when you do a painting, when you're done, take a spot of red, put it anywhere you want on the painting where you believe it belongs, and you'll be done. Okay, so I went over the process I use in painting this style of abstract art. I showed you how I create depth and movement through the use of size, composition, shading, color, and color value, and applied it to our demonstration using different techniques. I had a great time with this. I hope you did too, and until next time, enjoy.